This is Lavielle, and I'll be doing a basic video tutorial on Vuhdo. This is really impromptu, and it's the first video I've done, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. If there's anything that I go over that you have questions on, feel free to send me a message and let me know, and I'll be glad to go over it in more detail. So let's get started. Alright, so this right here is Vuhdo that you can see. I can move it around wherever I want. Right now it's set up perfectly the way I like it in my settings. So we'll go in and elaborate on some of those settings. First you have the general tab. There's nothing really you have to monkey here with, because you're going to be taking care of panels that you don't want in the move section. Feel free to go over and read through it if you want to know more about it. Otherwise, the one thing I like to point out to people here is just the lock panels option. You can enable it, which will make it so that you can't move the Vuhdo bars around at all. If you want to be able to move it just regularly when you're not doing anything in particular, you can just check on it for in fights. So when you're raiding, you don't accidentally move Vuhdo somewhere where you don't want it. I recommend that enabling one of these two, just because when you're raiding, the last thing we want to do is drag your Vuhdo over an important timer or something like that. The only other thing I like to touch on here is indicators. You can change, obviously, where you want mana bars to show, and you can add where you want rage bars to show, or what aggro you want to look like. Right now I have it set up that aggro is a nice solid red line around the box. That's really handy to have activated for knowing when the tanks are switching who has aggro, or if a DPS only pulls aggro to know what moron did it. And it just adds for a more colorful dynamic to your Vuhdo. Another thing is you can have a bar background on. I have mine currently off, but if you're in a fight where there's lots of graphics or a really intensive color where you can't see the bars that well, definitely turn on the background so you can see better if you're having troubles. Otherwise, obviously I have a mana bar setting right here. I can move that up or below or wherever I want it. And then lastly I have the health bar. You can set the health bars to be one general solid color, as you see right here. I have it set to class colors just because I think it looks pretty, and it just gives me a more dynamic display of the raid. Okay, and of course you're going to want to set up spells properly. Right now it has me set up as discipline. Sometimes my computer randomly disconnected because I had a power surge, and that'll screw up Vuhdo when you set it up to certain specs. All you have to do is switch to a different spec, and Vuhdo will automatically figure it out and reset itself. And if you don't know what I mean by that, just don't worry about it until it happens to you. Okay, so I'm in Holy Spec right now, so I only have 3 mouse buttons, but you can see that there are options for up to 16 different mouse buttons, and then combine that with keyboard buttons and clicks, and you've got a ton of different options. So have fun setting up all your different heals here. Just the one thing I like to point out is Vuhdo is really nice in the fact that it's intelligent, where it knows what spells you have and which you don't. So as you saw, I was in Holy and I tried to put in Penance, and it was grayed out because I don't have Penance in my spellbook. And then another thing is, like, let's say I'm slightly stupid and I try to spell heal as if I'm going to heal people with parts of my foot. Won't pop up as spell, and it'll be grayed out and say, no, that doesn't exist. So once I type in heal, it will say spell. Another fun thing that you can do is have it recognize macros. So let's say I want to set up a macro to a click. Let's pretend that 2 heal is an actual useful macro of mine. So then I would go in and type in 2 heal, and automatically recognizes that's a macro I have. The same thing with trinkets and stuff, so it's really handy to use if you want to set up special macros and combinations with your Vuhdo and clicks. The other thing I like to note is on the miscellaneous tab of your spells, you can manage different layouts depending on your spec. So let's pretend I'm holy right now. So let's pretend I just set this up. I just put in all my holy spells, so I would just go to miscellaneous, type in priest holy, click that it's tied to my first spec, and then just save as and apply, and bam, you've got it. And then it has a bunch of all your different saved specs here. The only thing to just be careful of is don't name different, if you have two different classes, don't name them the same layout. For example, I had a paladin, and I have a paladin healer and a priest healer, and I made the mistake one day of setting both of their specs up to say holy, and so Vuhdo was confused and tried to give priest spells to my paladin and paladin spells to my priest, and it didn't work out. So make sure to name them specifically for each character. And then lastly in the spells tab, Smartcast. I generally turn cleanse and buff Smartcast off just so I don't accidentally cleanse and buff when I don't want to, but you can have it battle res and resurrect as Smartcast, which is easy because then all you have to do is click on, when someone's died, on mine I have it set up to gray out their name, and you just click on it and it automatically will start resing them and highlight them in green. The buffs tab I don't generally worry about, but you can set it up where if people are missing buffs, you can have their bar or name set up for a certain color depending on what buffs they're missing. But I don't worry about that because I buff for every pull and for every battle res automatically, so I don't worry about it telling me what buffs I'm missing. But it can be handy if you have to manage a lot of buffs. Go to the debuffs tab. Alright, for debuffs, it's really handy in the fact that you can have it ignore irrelevant debuffs. So let's say a rogue got a spell silencing effect on them, or a magic effect that slows down their spell casts. Well, you don't really have to worry about that with your melee classes, so you can just check Vuhdo here and it'll ignore buffs that don't affect classes, certain classes. So that's really useful, and non-harmful debuffs and things like that you can have it ignore. I also have it set up to ignore buffs that I can't remove, so if someone gets poison, I'm a priest, I can't remove the poison from you, so it just ignores it and doesn't even highlight it. The only time you might want to uncheck this is if you are in charge of seeing how fast things are getting dispelled. Let's say poisons are being dispelled really slowly, I would then uncheck this so I could see how long poison debuffs are staying on people. But generally you don't have to worry about that. In the custom tab, you can customize all the debuffs. You can have them play certain sounds when a debuff goes out, give them different icons, make them different colors, a bunch of different fun things. And then if you're going into new content where Vuhdo might not be updated, Vuhdo's usually really good at being updated, but sometimes you get in a situation where there's a debuff that you don't have. All you have to do is type in the specific name here and then click save, and it'll automatically save it into the list of debuffs. And then it will generally color it depending on what type of debuff it is.